Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Hi everyone, this is Mallika Pathak from Miranda House, University of Delhi, presenting the course on conductance for the students of BSc Honours Chemistry and BSc with Chemistry. This is the lecture 2 of the module 7. The academic expert of the course is Dr. Amrita T. Sheikh, and the recording is being done under the DTH Swayam Prabha project of the MHRD, New Delhi. Now in the previous class, we took a look at electrochemistry. What is the relationship between the electrical energy and the chemical energy? Then we looked at the difference between the metallic conductors and electrolytic conductors. The difference was very simple. In the metallic conductors, the movement of electrons govern the electric current movement, whereas in the case of electrolytic conductor, it is the movement of ions which is related to the conduction of electric current. Because in the case of metallic conductor, it is the electrons which are moving, therefore there is no transfer of matter and there is no change in the physical composition and the chemical composition. But because in the case of electrolytic conductors there was movement of ions, therefore you could see that there was transfer of matter and there was change in the composition. One major difference that we also studied was that in the case of metallic conductors, when you increase the temperature, the resistance of the solution increases, because we emphasize there that because when you move the electrons, the metallic kernels are fixed, the electrons are moving through the metal conductor. But when you increase the temperature, these vibrations of these metallic kernels increases, the impedance or the resistance to the movement of electrons increases, therefore the resistance of the conductor increases or the conductance of the electric current decreases in the case of metallic conductor when you increase the temperature. Whereas in the case of electrolytic conductor, when you increase the temperature, the ions get higher kinetic energy. So their kinetic energy increases, so their movement increases, and therefore conductance increases, whereas the resistance decreases when you increase the temperature in the electrolytic conductors. Now today we are going to continue with the concepts that we learned of the metallic conductors to use it for the electrolytic conductors, because our aim is to study about the conduction of electric current in the solutions. So we will look at some of the concepts that govern it. We will look at this conductance property in details for the electrolytic solutions. So we will look at terms like conductance, conductivity, how do we measure conductance, and how do these terms vary with various factors. Then we will introduce a new important term which is called as molar conductivity during the course of this class. So let's continue with this. Just to give you an idea, in the previous class we had done the difference. We had also looked at the electrolysis phenomena and the Faraday's laws of electrolysis. So just continuing with the same theme, let's start. So in the case of electrolytic solutions, there are certain concepts which we need to talk about before we can talk about electrolytic conduction. Now what happens is that the laws which govern the movement of electric current or the movement of electrons is the same law which will govern the movement of electric current in the electrolytic conductors. So in the electrolytic conductor, what we are meaning is electrolytic solutions. So the same laws that were applied to metallic conductors will be applied to electrolytic solutions. So let us recall what these laws are. The first law is the Ohm's law. So what is the Ohm's law? We remember that the Ohm's law states that the current I flowing through a conductor is directly proportional to the potential difference applied across its ends. So we've done it in 9th standard, we have revised it in 11th and 12th standard also. So what does it say? So you have a metallic conductor. If you apply potential difference across the conductor, then the current flowing in the conductor is directly proportional to the potential difference across the two ends of the conductor. This was what Ohm's law states. And here the potential difference is expressed in terms of V and its units are volts, and the current I is expressed as amperes. So V in volts is proportional to current I in amperes. When we remove the proportionality sign, we put a constant of proportionality, and in this case the constant of proportionality that we put is R. This is called as resistance of the conductor, and its units is ohm. So V is equal to IR. So this is what Ohm's law states. So in other words, Ohm's law states that the current flowing through a conductor is directly proportional to the potential difference V applied across the conductor and inversely proportional to the resistance of the conductor. That is, I, which is the current, is directly proportional to the potential difference V and inversely proportional to the resistance of the conductor. Reminding you here that the units of I are in amperes, V is in volts, and R is in ohms. So I in amperes, V in volts, R in amperes. Now, therefore, R can be written as V upon I. This R is the resistance here. The unit we have already said is ohms, and it is represented by this symbol. Now, this resistance of a conductor, and here it can be metallic conductor or the electrolytic conductor. Just to emphasize here that the laws which govern the electrolytic conductors are the same as the laws which govern metallic conductors. So R, as in metallic conductors, is directly proportional to the length of the conductor and inversely proportional to the area of cross section of the conductor. So R is proportional to L by A, where L is the length of the conductor and A is the area of cross section of the conductor. Whenever we have a proportionality sign and we remove it, we put a constant of proportionality, and this here is rho. So R is equal to rho L by A, and this rho is called as resistivity or specific resistance. So when L will be equal to 1 and A will be equal to 1, this rho will become equal to R. So this rho, the resistivity, is defined as the resistance of an conductor which is of unit length and unit area of cross section, because here we are talking about electrolytic solutions in the electrolytic conductors. Therefore, we can say that rho is equal to R when the length of the electrolytic solution is 1 centimeter and the area of cross section is 1 centimeter square. Or we can say that it is the resistance of this rho is the resistance of 1 centimeter cube of an electrolytic solution. That is, L and A are 1, then rho is equal to R. So resistivity of an electrolytic solution is defined as the resistance of 1 centimeter cube of an electrolytic solution. Now this rho is characteristic property of the nature of the conductor or the nature of the electrolytic solution. So rho is actually a property of the solution or the conductor, whichever we are talking. So this could be metallic conductor or the electrolytic conductor. And the units of rho will be that of ohm meter, because what is rho? Rho is equal to R upon L by A. So if you put the unit of R as ohms, L is meter, A as meter square, then you will get rho is equal to ohm meter. So the units of resistivity are ohm meter because the unit of R is ohms. Both metallic conductors and electrolytic conductors obey Ohm's law. So V is equal to IR is obeyed by both metallic conductors and electrolytic solutions. Now if they are being obeyed, so all the terms which are valid, V, I and R, are valid for both metallic and electrolytic conductors. But it's better to use a term called conduction and conductance when talking about solutions, because we are talking about more about movement of ions than about resistance of the metal towards the movement of electrons. Now, according to the Atkins Physical Chemistry book, which is the standard book for physical chemistry, electrical conduction is defined as the migration of charge along a potential gradient, or the flux of particles down a concentration gradient. Now, which concentration gradient? We are talking about the charges. Now, charges, there is concentration gradient for the charges. there is charges, more concentration of charges at one place, less concentration of charges at the other place, and there is a movement of charges or the ions from higher concentration to the lower concentration. So this flux of particles down a concentration gradient determines the movement of the ions. Now, so what is flux? Flux is the quantity of a property passing through a given area per unit time, and therefore conductance is defined as the flux of the charge or flux of the ions along the potential gradient. Now, in most of the books, conductance is in fact defined as reciprocal of the resistance, and because it is the reciprocal of resistance, therefore its unit is Ohm's inverse. It is also written as mho or Siemens. It is represented by capital G. Now, because conductance is equal to 1 by R, therefore it is equal to 1 by rho into 1 upon L by A, where L by A we have already said is the cell constant. So, kappa upon G star. So, G is equal to kappa upon G star, where kappa is defined as a term called as conductivity, which is actually equal to 1 upon rho, or it is the reciprocal of resistivity, and G star is equal to the cell constant or L by A. Now, if G is equal to kappa upon G star and kappa is equal to 1 by rho, therefore this kappa or the conductivity is actually the reciprocal of resistivity, and therefore can be defined as the conductance of a volume of solution of 1 centimeter length and 1 centimeter square area of cross section, or it can alternatively be defined as the conductance of 1 centimeter cube of the solution of the electrolyte. Now, what was the unit of resistivity? Ohms meter. So what would be the units of kappa? Ohms inverse, meter inverse. Because Ohms inverse can also be written as mho, so mho meter inverse, or Simon meter inverse. So conductivity has the units of Ohm inverse, meter inverse, mho meter inverse, Siemens meter inverse, and it is actually the reciprocal of resistivity. Now that we have talked about the various terms and the concepts which are related to the conductance of solutions, we must measure conductance. And how do we measure conductance? We use what is called as a Wheatstone bridge circuit. Now this is the Wheatstone bridge circuit, and this is present in an instrument called as conductivity meter or conductometer or conductance bridge. Now in most undergraduate labs we have a conductometer or a conductivity meter or a conductance bridge, and there are various models which are present, and this is just one of the model that is present in most undergraduate labs. So within this model we have a circuit which is that of Wheatstone bridge circuit. Now we have studied Wheatstone bridge circuit in 11th and 12th while studying electric current, and we know that when there is the potential drop across the galvanometer is 0 or null, then R3 into R2 is equal to R4 into R1, or R1 by R2 is equal to R3 by R4. So if we know any of the three terms, we can find out the value of the fourth term. So if I want to find out the resistance of a solution, then I will just need to place it in one of the bridges of the Wheatstone bridge, and we will be able to find out its resistance. And if we know the value of the resistance, we can find out the value of conductance, because conductance is the reciprocal of resistance. No, but there are two problems when we work with Wheatstone bridge circuit. The first is, can we use a DC current, direct current? No, we cannot use the direct current while working with Wheatstone bridge circuit for the electrolytic solutions, because when we use a direct current, there are concentration changes which take place when we pass a direct current. And because there are concentration changes taking place due to the electrolysis that is happening, thus concentration of the solution will change and we will not be able to study the solution for a very long time. So this can be avoided by using an alternating current of high frequency, because when we use an alternating current, the polarity will keep on changing, and whatever happens in the one cycle will be nullified by the other cycle, the next cycle. So AC current is normally used, and within an AC current per second there are 1000 cycles which are taking place. So almost 1000 Hertz, 2000 Hertz frequency alternating current is used while working with the Wheatstone bridge circuit. The other is that we are working with solutions, not the metallic conductors. So it's not as if we can just put the metallic conductors between the two ends of the Wheatstone bridge. No, we are talking about solution. So solutions cannot be directly connected. You have to have the contact there in place. This problem is solved by using a specially designed vessel called conductivity cell. Now there are two kinds of conductivity cell normally seen in the labs. One is a pour-in kind of conductivity cell. So what happens is you have two platinum electrodes within this cell and you just pour in your solution. So the solutions are now between the two electrodes and you've just poured the solution in. So this is a conductivity cell. You have a conductivity cell and you just pour the solution in through these tubes. Now the other, which is the most comfortable one to use and the one which is most commonly used in the undergraduate labs, is the dip-in kind of the conductivity cell, where you take a solution in a beaker and you just put your conductivity cell into that beaker. Now the moment you dip your conductivity cell into the beaker, the two electrodes, the two metal plates, the platinum metal plates which are there in the conductivity cell will be across the solution, and therefore your solution can therefore be used for measuring the conductance. Now, so there are within the conductivity cell there are two special things that have to be there. There have to be platinum electrodes which should be coated with platinum black to increase the surface area. So you have platinum electrodes which are coated with platinum black, and because when we are using a conductivity cell, then we also need to know the term called cell constant. We defined earlier, G star, L by A. So if I need to know the L by A value of my conductivity cell, now it's not very easy to measure the length and area of cross section across the conductivity cell, and it might change during the course of the experiment. So you have to calibrate your conductivity cell, and it's very easy to do. We are going to talk about it, but your conductivity cells are characterized by the values of these L and A. The L, the distance between the platinum electrodes, and area of cross section of the platinum electrodes is given by A. So when you place the solution between these electrodes, the solution is of the length of L and the area of cross section of A. Now, how do we calibrate? We were talking about calibration of our conductivity cell or the conductance cell. Now, we need to know the values of L and A because we want to find out the values of our G, and we just define G is equal to kappa by G star. So, how do we go about finding out the value of our L by A for our conductivity cell? And I just said that it's not very reliable to measure the length and the area of cross section of a platinum electrodes within the conductivity cell. So the method that is normally applied is that we use standard aqueous KCl solutions of either of these concentration. The values of kappa, the conductivity values of these solutions, are given in the literature. Now, if I know the value of kappa for the solution that I have taken, and I measure the conductance of the solution using the Wheatstone bridge circuit or the conductivity meter, then G star, the cell constant value, will be actually equal to kappa by G. So very simple. Just you need to take the solutions of a definite concentration of KCl. Normally the standard KCl solutions that are normally used are either 0.001 molar or 0.1 molar. And you take these solutions, just make KCl solution of these normalities. The value of the kappa is given in the literature. You take that value of kappa, you measure the conductance in your conductometer and just divide, and you will get the value of your cell constant. And this is what is called as calibration of your conductivity cell. So once the cell constant has been determined, we can use it for measuring the resistance or the conductance or the conductivity of any solution. So how do we define conductivity? We just define the conductivity as the conductance of 1 centimeter cube of the electrolytic solution. But the better definition is The conductivity of a solution at any given concentration is the conductance of 1 unit volume of the solution kept between 2 platinum electrodes with unit area of cross section and at a distance of unit length. So now we become a little more specific. We were saying that it was the conductance of 1 centimeter cube of the electrolytic solution. But right now we are saying that this is for 1 centimeter cube of the electrolytic solution or 1 unit volume of the solution, but when it has been kept between 2 platinum electrodes. So we have become a little more specific while defining. So now the better definition, like I am repeating, is conductivity of a solution at any given concentration is defined as the conductance of 1 unit volume of the solution kept between 2 platinum electrodes with unit area of cross section and at a distance of unit. Now that we have defined conductivity, can we determine the value of conductivity? Yes, the procedure is very simple and very similar to how we determine the value of cell constant. So we first need to find out the value of cell constant of our conductivity cell. So we use KCl solutions of particular normality and use their values of specific conductance from the literature and get the value of cell constant. Then we take our unknown solution for which we want to find out the value of conductivity. So we put that unknown solution into a beaker and just dip our conductivity cell into it, and we find out the value of conductance. Now that we've got the values of conductance and cell constant, we just use this equation kappa is equal to G star into G to get the value of conductivity or specific conductance of our unknown solution. Very, very simple. Now let's look at the various factors on which our conductivity depends. So one of the most important factors on which it depends is concentration. And in fact, not just concentration of the electrolyte, it is actually depending upon the number of ions per unit volume of the solution. Just let's take a look at it. So just from this graph you can see that the lowest value is that for acetic acid, and then magnesium sulfate and LiCl and KOH, and then maximum is for sulfuric acid in this graph. So what does it show? It actually shows that as the electrolyte is changing, as you are moving from weaker electrolyte to the stronger electrolyte, the value of conductivity is changing because the number of ions produced from a strong electrolyte will be more as compared to that from a weak electrolyte. Because we know the value of alpha, we defined it in the previous lecture, that alpha values will determine the number of ions that are there produced from 1 mole of the electrolyte. So in the case of acetic acid, it is even less than 2%. So because the number of ions is less, therefore the conductivity values are very less. Whereas for sulfuric acid, because it is a strong electrolyte, the number of ions produced from the same concentration will be more, so the conductivity values will be higher. Also, this value depends upon the dilution factor. We are right now just saying about the number of ions, so it is basically nature. So for a weak electrolyte, the conductivity values are going to be lower. For the strong electrolyte, the conductivity values are going to be higher. But how does it vary with concentration? Very, very simple. When you dilute the solution, what will happen is the number of ions per unit volume will decrease. And because the number of ions per unit volume will decrease, therefore the conductivity value will decrease. Let's take a better look at it. So when you dilute a solution, the volume increases. This volume increases. Because this volume increases, therefore N by V value will decrease and therefore kappa will decrease. But you might say that this does not happen for a weak electrolyte. When you dilute a weak electrolyte, the dissociation or the ionization will increase. Yes, it will increase, but the increase in the number of ions per unit volume will not be there. The number of ions will increase, but the volume increase will be much higher, and therefore the N by V value will in fact decrease, and therefore kappa will decrease. In the case of strong electrolytes, very simple. In the case of strong electrolytes, the electrolytes are already dissociated, so the number of ions will not change at all. The N value will not change at all. Only the volume will change. So the N by V value will in fact decrease, and therefore kappa will decrease for strong electrolyte. Very easy to understand for strong electrolyte. But in the case of weak electrolytes, some people may just feel a little more inquisitive, and they may say that This is because the dissociation is increasing. Yes, the dissociation of the weak electrolyte is increasing. The number of ions are increasing when you dilute the solution of a weak electrolyte, but the volume is also increasing a lot. And the increase in the volume is much higher as compared to the increase in the N factor. Therefore, N by V value is in fact decreasing, and therefore kappa will decrease. So, conductivity value decreases both for strong and for weak electrolyte when you dilute the solution. We have talked about the nature when we talked about the acetic acid and sulfuric acid in comparison. Then the other factor is temperature. So when you increase the temperature of the solution, the dissociation increases and the conductivity increases, and therefore you see such kind of graphs. So conductivity values depends upon nature, it depends upon concentration, it depends upon temperature. So nature, concentration, temperature. When you increase the temperature, the dissociation of the same electrolyte will increase, and when the dissociation increases, therefore the conductivity will increase. Now, nowadays we prefer using a term called molar conductivity instead of just talking about conductivity as such. Why? Because we are talking about a particular concentration of a solution when we talk about a solution. So molar conductivity of a solution at a given concentration is defined as the conductance of a volume V of the solution containing 1 mole of the electrolyte placed between two parallel electrodes which are unit distance apart and have area of cross section which is large enough to contain the volume V of the solution. So to understand it, how much of the electrolyte are we taking? The solid electrolyte that we are taking is just 1 mole, and we dissolve it into a volume V of the solution. Now we place this solution between two parallel platinum electrodes. These two platinum electrodes have distance between them of unity, and the area of cross section, the parallel plates, are of so much of area that they can contain the whole volume of the solution. So molar conductivity of a solution at a given concentration is defined as the conductance volume of the volume V of the solution, which contains how much of the electrolyte? 1 mole of the electrolyte, and it is placed between two parallel electrodes. The distance between these parallel electrodes is unity, and the area of cross section of these electrolytes, so these are the electrolytes and their area of cross section is large enough to contain the whole volume of the solution. The distance is unity, but the area of cross section of these parallel platinum electrodes is large enough to contain the whole volume of the solution. So this molar conductivity lambda m is defined as kappa by C. So what is the unit of kappa? Siemens meter inverse. Normally the SI unit of concentration is not used, but if the concentration C is expressed in SI units, then it will be taken as moles per meter cube. So if kappa is in Siemens meter inverse, concentration is moles per meter cube, which is the SI unit of concentration, then lambda will come out in the units of Siemens meter square mole inverse. Right? So the unit of molar conductivity, I am re-emphasizing, is Siemens meter square mole inverse. But normally we do not use concentration in moles per meter cube, although it is an SI unit. We do not express concentrations in mole per meter cube, but in mole per decimeter cube or moles per liter. So how do we account for it? We take kappa in Siemens centimeter inverse, and let's take our concentrations in moles per liter. So if I want to convert this concentration into moles per centimeter cube, this is the factor that will come. So kappa taken in Siemens centimeter inverse, concentration taken in moles per liter, when multiplied with 1000, will give you the value of molar conductivity in the units of Siemens centimeter square mole inverse. So this is the normal equation that we use while solving the numericals. I am emphasizing the correct, both of these are correct, and the SI units are these. But normally in all our numericals and in labs, we use this equation. So we normally express kappa in terms of Siemens centimeter inverse, our concentration in moles per liter or moles per decimeter cube. So to account for these factors, we multiply it by 1000, and then we get our lambda in terms of Siemens centimeter square mole inverse. So let's take a look at a numerical to get a better understanding of kappa, lambda. Kappa, I am emphasizing, is conductivity. Lambda, this is capital lambda. Lambda is molar conductivity. So normally we write it as lambda m. So let's take a look at this numerical. A conductivity cell filled with 0.1 molar solution of potassium chloride at 25 degree centigrade has a measured resistance of this. So the resistance is given as 24.96 ohms. Calculate the cell constant if the conductivity kappa for 0.1 molar solution of KCl is this, 0.011639 Siemens centimeter inverse. And the conductivity water that is used for making the solution has a kappa of 7.5 into 10 to the power minus 8 Siemens centimeter inverse. When the cell is filled with 0.01 molar solution of acetic acid, the cell resistance is 1982 ohms. Calculate the molar conductivity of acetic acid at this concentration. So we are given the value of resistance. So we use the formula R is equal to rho L by A, or R is equal to rho into G star. So our G star will be equal to R by rho, or kappa into R. We are given the value of kappa, we are given the value of R, and we just multiply and we get the value of our cell constant. So our conductivity cell now has a cell constant value of 0.2905. Now this same conductivity cell is used for the rest of the experiment. So now we want to find out the conductivity of our 0.01 molar acetic acid solution. So what do? Kappa will be equal to G star by R. We have calculated value of G star, which is the cell constant. We are given the value of R as 1982 ohms. So we just substitute and we get the value of our conductivity of a 0.01 molar acetic acid solution. Now we need to find out the conductivity due to acetic acid alone. We are told that this solution is being made in water whose conductivity value is given here, 7.5 into 10 to the power minus 8 Siemens centimeter. So if we just subtract this value from the value that we have obtained for our solution, we will get the value for only the acetic acid. So we got the value. Now what is molar conductivity of acetic acid? We know that lambda is equal to kappa by C. Here kappa is given, the units are Siemens centimeter inverse. The concentration is given as 0.01 molar. So we just multiply by 1000 in the top, or we just take this value and convert the concentration into moles per centimeter cube, and we will get the value of our lambda m. The units will be Siemens centimeter square mole inverse. So this is the way that we work with conductivity and the conductance numerical. Very simple. Try them at home using problems which are given in the textbooks. So today what have we done? We have looked at some of the concepts which govern the conductance of electrolytic solution. Then we looked at the conductance term, conductivity term. How do we measure the value of conductance and conductivity? How does the conductivity vary with nature, concentration, temperature? And then we have taken a look at molar conductivity. We are going to talk in detail about molar conductivity in the next lecture. I just wanted you to have an introduction to the molar conductivity so that we can continue with it in the next lecture. Thank you so much. Stay home, stay safe, take care of your health and take care of your parents' health. Bye-bye.